Everyone. Hello, even when people had no idea how our solar system works. They looked at the night sky and fantasized what secrets the stars hold. Today we have many pictures from space. Astronauts from all over the world have experienced the feeling of weightlessness, and now we know much more about our universe. Sometimes incredible, inexplicable things happen in space, which I will tell you about right now. But first, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and click on the bell, so as not to miss anything. Space is both intriguing and intimidating at the same time. Therefore, only the most courageous people become astronauts. If during the flight something goes wrong and the astronauts lose contact with the Earth, he will be completely alone and helpless in the middle of a vast universe. All spaceflight data is classified information, but still sometimes leaks occur and we learn about the incredible events that happen to astronauts. Sometimes radio operators pick up strange signals from space. So in 1963, Italian radio amateurs, the Battista brothers, heard a strange signal from the glass of the Earth's orbit. It was not easy to decipher it, but they still managed to do it. They heard a woman's voice. She spoke Russian and asked for help. And then the hell with us, she turned out to be completely alone in outer space, and she only had the hope of being heard. The brothers suggested that the voice belongs to the Soviet cosmonautics, which could be lost during the flight for unknown reasons. We do not know all the names of Soviet people who have been in space. What if during a classified experimental flight, the woman cosmonaut went missing and we never found out about it? Of course, the easiest way would be to say that the brothers cheated in order to attract attention to themselves. If not for one thing, the signal was also heard by the UK at the Jodrell Bank experimental station. Despite the fact that these recordings are freely available, no one has officially commented on it, and this gives rise to even more rumors and conspiracy theories, and some unknown women. The astronaut really ended up in outer space and transmitted a signal to the ground, which the Battista brothers received, but we will never know for sure. Arthur. Is it possible to get lost in space? The tragic fate of the Columbia shuttle crew convinces us that this is quite real. The most famous member of this crew was Cal, at the beginning of the first ever female U.S. astronaut of Indian origin. She was beautiful. Fearless stars interested her since childhood, and she dreamed that one day she would go to them. On January 16, 2003, she, as part of the crew of the Columbia shuttle, went on her last flight. The accident happened on the 1st of February, shortly before the end of the flight. Although, as it became known later, the fatal damage to the ship occurred even in the second minute after takeoff due to vibration from the skin of the external fuel tank. It flew off. The tile of the heat-insulating flight control foam immediately recorded this fact, but they hoped that everything would work out. First, there were cases when shuttle flights with similar damage were very successful. Secondly, it was no longer possible to fix anything during the flight with spacesuits for spacewalks. In this flight, there was no one on board, which means that it was guaranteed impossible to seal the hole, even if it had been found with at least something. 2 weeks after the shuttle took off, it caught fire in the sky and the 7 crew members could no longer be saved. It is possible that if on board there were spacesuits, the astronauts left on a hot shuttle and found themselves lost in space. Sometimes astronauts, returning to Earth, tell simply incredible stories. For example, a former NASA astronaut, Franklin History Musgraves, claims to be part of 2 of his missions. He saw strange creatures in space. They were like snakes, their length exceeded 2 meters, and they curved all the time. These creatures followed the spaceship. But they did no harm. This story, Musgraves told in one of his many interviews in 1994, when a journalist asked what it could be. According to the astronaut himself, he suggested that they were representatives of an extraterrestrial civilization. This amazing story, Franklin told guides, after the end of the flight. However, no one took his stories seriously. They were explained by hallucinations. Indeed, during space travel, visual perception distortions and inhibited thinking often occur, but Musgraves himself is sure that the snake is in space. He didn't like it at all. However, apart from words, he has no evidence. Spaceflight. This is a lot of stress. Incredible overload. A feeling of absolute loneliness and isolation from humanity. Before Yuri Gagarin made his first flight, no one could say exactly how the human mind would behave in space. They could not risk human health. Therefore, it was decided to send a highly developed and well-trained chimpanzee named Ham into space. The task that the chimpanzee had to cope with was to execute a well-memorized command. Being in space no later than 5 seconds after the blue light turned on, Ham had to pull a certain lever, thereby proving that he was fully conscious. The monkey coped with everything and became a real hero. When he returned to Earth, a delicacy was waiting for him, and the words Hama flight was very important for science because the chimpanzee proved that in space he did not lose consciousness and retained conditioned reflexes to his feet would have been impossible without many other animal astronauts who have been in space. Previously, it was not, and they showed that flying can be safe for their health. Unfortunately, not all animals. After the flight waited honors delicacy especially unlucky. Filet Set is the first cat to travel into space. Firstly, she had to fly completely without preparation. It was planned that Felix the cat would be sent into space, but he managed to escape shortly before departure, and then it was decided to urgently replace him. Secondly, after this one successfully landed over it, research was conducted for 2 months. Then the scientists decided to study Chaitin, how the flight affected the state of her brain, and for this the cat was euthanized. Of course, many accuse us of cruelty to animals, but if the few exploits of our smaller brothers, it is unlikely that a person would ever be able to go to space, and yet, no matter how research has been carried out, no one to this day can say exactly how being in outer space affects a particular person at once. If the snakes that he saw the cost of playing in outer space calls hallucinations, then explaining Yana's stories to the left is much more difficult than the 15th October 2003, China first sent its astronaut into space, which was the Yang left ship Angel 5, completed 14 orbits around the Earth in 21 hours and landed in the autonomous region of Inner Mongolia. After landing, Yang told rescuers that he was feeling well, the first Chinese astronaut to become a national hero. 13 years after the flight, Yang made a sensational statement in an interview broadcast on China's central television. He said that during the flight he distinctly heard a sharp knock that appeared suddenly and just as suddenly disappeared. He got scared and reported it to the ground. He quickly managed to establish that the sound was coming not from the spacecraft, but from outside, but he did not manage to see at least something in the window after the landing of the brigade. The technician nevertheless examined the spacecraft and did not find any problems. This riddle is still not given, rest to Jan. After all, who knows? Perhaps one of the representatives of an extraterrestrial civilization knocked on his ship. And how do you feel about such incredible stories of astronauts? Believe in their reality or think that all this is a fruit of the imagination? Please share your opinion in the comments.